Hello and welcome to the Minimum Competence episode for Friday, December 13th, 2024. I'm your host for today, Andrew Leahy, a tax and technology attorney from New Jersey. On today's episode, RFK Jr.'s lawyer targets the polio vaccine, Trump-era probes stir fear at the DOJ, a ByteDance whistleblower's misconduct, and the SEC revisits Neuralink. Let's remember, we learn from history that we do not learn from history, and read today's legal news. On this day in legal history, December 13th, 1918, President Woodrow Wilson arrived in France to negotiate the terms of peace to conclude World War I, becoming the first sitting U.S. president to travel to Europe. Wilson's presence marked a historic moment in international diplomacy as he sought to champion his visions for a post-war world order based on his 14 points. These principles emphasized self-determination, free trade, disarmament, and the establishment of a League of Nations to prevent future conflicts. Wilson joined the Allied leaders at the Paris Peace Conference, where complex negotiations would ultimately shape the Treaty of Versailles. The treaty included harsh reparations against Germany, redrew national borders across Europe, and officially created the League of Nations. While the League was Wilson's most cherished goal, the treaty and its terms faced intense scrutiny back in the United States. Despite Wilson's efforts to garner support, the U.S. Senate, led by Republicans skeptical of the treaty's implications, rejected it in 1920. Key concerns included the League's potential to entangle the U.S. in foreign conflicts without congressional approval. This decision prevented the United States from joining the League of Nations, a significant blow to Wilson's vision and to the League's influence as a global peacekeeping body. The treaty's rejection highlighted the tension between internationalism and isolationism in American foreign policy. Wilson's involvement in the treaty process nevertheless underscored the growing role of the United States in global affairs and set a precedent for presidential diplomacy on the world stage. Aaron Siri, a lawyer aligned with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., has petitioned the FDA to revoke approval of the polio vaccine, challenging one of the most significant public health achievements in history. Siri, who has a long track record of opposing vaccines, argues that the polio vaccine, like others, lacks sufficient testing and transparency. His actions, including a request to pause distribution of 13 additional vaccines, align with the agenda of the Informed Consent Action Network, a nonprofit advocating for, quote, medical freedom and closely tied to Kennedy. Critics and sane people warn that such efforts undermine decades of progress in eradicating vaccine-preventable diseases. In the battle between children and polio, RFK Jr. has thrown his hat into the ring on the side of polio. Public health experts are alarmed by the potential consequences of withdrawing the polio vaccine, which has protected millions from paralysis and death. Recent polio cases in unvaccinated populations highlight the persistent threat of the virus, described by one expert as an airplane ride away. Siri's approach extends beyond polio, targeting the FDA's vaccine approval processes and inundating agencies with document requests that some view as an attempt to hinder their operations. Kennedy's consideration for health secretary in the incoming Trump administration raises fears that vaccine policy may shift dramatically. Critics argue that dismantling vaccine programs risks a resurgence of diseases that left children dead or in leg braces, a grim echo of past public health crises. Despite claims of merely seeking transparency and choice, Kennedy and Siri's actions are seen as a direct threat to public health infrastructure. Washington defense lawyers are preparing to represent Justice Department officials, prosecutors, and FBI agents who fear being targeted for investigations under Donald Trump's upcoming presidency. Lawyers report a surge in inquiries from current and former DOJ employees concerned about congressional scrutiny, criminal probes, or internal watchdog investigations as Trump vows to dismantle the so-called deep state and pursue individuals he perceives as politically disloyal. Though much remains uncertain, attorneys are advising federal workers on how to prepare for potential retaliation tied to politically sensitive cases. Some fear investigations from the DOJ's Inspector General, which could harm careers without requiring courtroom evidence. High-profile threats, such as prosecuting special counsel Jack Smith, are seen as less likely due to the difficulty of meeting legal standards for criminal cases. Financial concerns loom large as many DOJ employees cannot afford expensive legal defense. Discussions among attorneys have included providing pro bono or reduced fee services to meet the anticipated demand. The nomination of Kash Patel as FBI director, who has openly advocated for firing and prosecuting certain federal employees, has intensified these preparations. Lawyers emphasize that these concerns are not paranoia, given public statements from Trump allies outlining plans to target DOJ personnel. A federal judge has ruled that Yintao Roger Yu, a former ByteDance executive suing the company for wrongful termination, engaged in serious misconduct during his lawsuit. Judge Susan Ilston found that Yu fabricated a key witness, lied under oath during his deposition, and abused the judicial process. As a result, the court sanctioned Yu and ordered his claims to be resolved through arbitration rather than continuing in court. Yu, previously head of U.S. engineering for ByteDance, alleged he was fired for exposing the company's intellectual property theft and the Chinese Communist Party's influence on TikTok. He claimed TikTok suppressed pro-democracy content at the CCP's request. However, ByteDance presented evidence that you lied about signing arbitration agreements and fabricated a declaration from an alleged witness. The witness, a ByteDance HR employee, testified she never made the statements attributed to her. The judge stated Yu's actions caused delays, wasted court resources, and constituted egregious litigation misconduct. She denied Yu's attempt to withdraw his lawsuit after ByteDance exposed his alleged perjury, ruling that such behavior would further undermine the judicial process. The judgment forces Yu to resolve the case through private arbitration as required by the disputed agreements he initially denied signing. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC, has reopened an investigation into Elon Musk's brain chip startup, Neuralink, according to a letter shared by Musk on the social platform X, which is formerly Twitter and formerly usable. The letter, written by Musk's attorney, Alex Spiro, was addressed to outgoing SEC Chair Gary Gensler and disclosed that Musk was given a 48-hour deadline to settle by paying an undisclosed monetary amount or face charges. However, the settlement demand is tied to the SEC's probe into Musk's $44 billion takeover of Twitter, not Neuralink. Musk and the SEC have a contentious history, including a 2018 lawsuit over his statements about taking Tesla private, which was settled with a $20 million fine and other conditions. Neuralink has also been under scrutiny after lawmakers urged the SEC to investigate whether Musk misled investors about the safety of its brain implant technology. It remains uncertain how much traction the SEC will gain against Musk, especially given his growing political influence. Musk, who supported Donald Trump's recent presidential campaign with substantial financial contributions, is poised to play a significant role in shaping the regulatory landscape. And isn't that nice? Trump has appointed Musk to a task force for overhauling the U.S. government. Musk and his attorney have vowed to resist SEC pressure, stating they will not be intimidated. And with that, and as always, I thank you so much for listening to Minimum Competence, your daily news podcast for lawyers. If you're looking for more than minimum competence, links to further reading on all the topics touched on today are in the show notes. And reviews go a long way towards helping new listeners to find our show. If you have a moment and can leave a rating or review on your podcast player, we'd sure appreciate it. And if you know someone that might be interested in the story we cover, consider sending them the episode. But remember, nothing here should be construed as legal advice because it is certainly not that. Minimum Competence is available at minimumcomp.com and wherever it is you get your finely crafted podcast. If you haven't checked out the website in a while, give it a look. There are complete transcripts and resources for each episode and its corresponding segments, as well as an opportunity to receive new episodes in email, newsletter, form. We'll see you back here on Monday, and until then, note, we like to close out the week of shows with a featured musical piece. That will make these Friday episodes seem especially long. We hope you'll stick it out and enjoy the featured piece, but if music, and specifically classical music, isn't your bag, we get it. Our mouth sounds unrelated to the week's closing music ends here. This week's closing theme is by Gustav Mahler. This week's closing theme is Gustav Mahler's Symphony No. 1, specifically the second movement, Kräftig bewegt, doch nicht zu schnell, recht gemächlich, or vigorously moving, but not too fast, quite leisurely. This piece, often referred to as the Ländler movement, captures the spirit of rustic Austrian dance with elegance and charm. Mahler draws inspiration from the traditional folk music of his homeland, transforming it through his unique orchestral language to evoke both joy and nostalgia. The movement begins with a bold and rhythmic motif in the lower strings, establishing a lilting dance rhythm that immediately transports the listener to a pastoral countryside. The waltz-like melodies that follow are imbued with a sense of simplicity, yet Mahler's characteristic use of lush orchestration and unexpected harmonies elevates them into something deeply expressive. The contrast between playful energy and more introspective moments is a hallmark of Mahler's style, reflecting his ability to capture the complexities of human emotion. Mahler's Symphony No. 1 was composed between 1887 and 1888 during a transformative period in the composer's life. Originally conceived as a symphonic poem, it underwent multiple revisions before settling into its final form. The second movement, in particular, serves as a counterbalance to the weightier and more dramatic sections of the symphony. Its robust energy and earthy charm provide a glimpse of Mahler's lighter, more playful side. One of the most striking features of this movement is its clever use of orchestral color. Mahler assigns each instrument a distinct voice, with strings, woodwinds, and brass weaving in and out of the dance-like texture. The resulting soundscape is both intimate and expansive, offering moments of humor, grandeur, and reflection. The movement also reflects Mahler's philosophy of life and art. Known for his belief that a symphony should encompass the world, this dance movement is not merely a pleasant interlude, but a microcosm of the human experience. The balance between structure and spontaneity mirrors the unpredictability of life itself. When listening to Kräftig bewegt, one can imagine villagers gathered for a lively dance, their laughter echoing across a sunlit valley. Yet, as with much of Mahler's work, the underlying currents of melancholy and irony remind us of life's fleeting nature. This tension between light and shadow is what makes Mahler's music so profoundly moving. As our closing theme, this movement offers a perfect blend of vitality and contemplation, inviting us to reflect on the rhythms of our own lives. Whether you're drawn to its buoyant melodies, its intricate orchestration, or its emotional depth, Mahler's Kräftig bewegt reminds us of the beauty and complexity in the everyday moments we often take for granted. Without further ado, Gustav Mahler's Symphony No. 1, second movement. Kräftig perfekt, doch nicht zu schnell, recht gemächlich. Enjoy.